The pull of mediocrity is not a force of nature. It's a force of habit. From the moment we're born, we're conditioned to follow paths already laid out for us. Go to school, get a job, pay bills, retire. It's a script so deeply ingrained that most never question it. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Comfort is the enemy of greatness. The human brain is wired to seek safety, to conserve energy, to avoid risk. And so, we drift into routines that demand little from us, mistaking familiarity for fulfillment. We tell ourselves we're being realistic, but in reality, we've just surrendered to inertia. Think about it. Why do so many people wake up decades later wondering, how did I get here? It's because they never decided not to. They never paused to ask, is this life or just a rehearsal for one? Society rewards compliance, not courage. It celebrates the predictable, not the extraordinary. But history doesn't remember those who played it safe. The ones who break free, the artists, the innovators, the outliers, they all share one trait. They refused to let the momentum of mediocrity carry them. Consider the lobster. It grows by shedding its shell, exposing itself to vulnerability until it forms a new, stronger one. That's the paradox of growth. You must first outgrow what's comfortable. Most people never do. They cling to their shells, their routines, their excuses. But you're different. You're asking the questions that unsettle the status quo. That's the first step. Because the life you want isn't found in the current. It's found in the courage to swim against it. The herd mentality isn't just a social phenomenon. It's a survival mechanism etched into our DNA. For thousands of years, fitting in meant safety. Straying from the tribe could mean danger. But here's the tragic irony. In a world that no longer requires that kind of conformity for survival, we still obey its ghost. We trade our potential for approval, our curiosity for comfort, and our dreams for the illusion of security. The system doesn't need rebels, it needs cogs. And so, we polish our resumes instead of our souls, chasing promotions instead of purpose. Look around. How many people are stuck in jobs that drain them, relationships that diminish them, routines that numb them, all because they fear the uncertainty of stepping off the treadmill? They've confused stability with living. But a life without risk is already a risk, the risk of never becoming who you were meant to be. Consider the lobster again. If it refused to molt, its shell would become a prison, stunting its growth until it suffocated. That's the trap of mediocrity. It doesn't announce itself as a cage, it whispers, "This is just how things are." Yet every so often someone wakes up. They feel the friction between who they are and who they're pretending to be. Maybe it's a late-night thought. There has to be more. Maybe it's a quiet rage at settling. That friction, that's your signal. Because the herd never stops to ask if it's headed toward a cliff, but you're starting to see the edge. The question is, will you keep marching, or will you turn and run toward the life that's waiting for you? We are all born with an innate hunger to belong, to be accepted, to be part of something larger than ourselves. This deep-seated need once kept our ancestors alive, but today, it often keeps us small. Solomon Ash's experiment revealed something unsettling. Even when the truth is obvious, the fear of standing alone can override our own judgment. Now scale that up to real life. How many times have you dimmed your ambitions because someone said, "That's not how things are done"? How often have you swallowed your true thoughts to avoid rocking the boat? This is the silent tyranny of social conditioning. It doesn't force you into submission with a gun to your head. It does something far more insidious. It convinces you that conformity is wisdom, that fitting in is maturity. From childhood, we're praised for obedience, not originality. We're taught to follow rules before we're taught to question them. By the time we're adults, the script is so deeply internalized that we mistake it for our own voice. The career path, the life milestones, even the way we're supposed to look or think, none of it is truly ours. It's borrowed, inherited, swallowed whole. But here's the turning point: awareness. The moment you realize that the life you're living is a product of conditioning, not choice, is the moment you reclaim your power. Because the truth is, The tribe doesn't care if you flourish. It only cares if you fall in line. And the cost of that compliance? Your potential, your passion, your aliveness. The people who break free, the ones who innovate, create, and inspire, they're not immune to the fear of rejection. They've just learned something crucial. It's better to stand alone in your truth than to disappear in the crowd. So ask yourself, whose life am I living? And more importantly, is it time to take it back? 10 years is all it takes for the gap between conformity and courage to become a chasm. That first classmate? They followed the script perfectly, showed up, clocked in, collected their paycheck. Their weekends blurred into a cycle of distractions, their ambitions softened by the sedative of good enough. They told themselves, this is just for now, but now became forever without them even noticing. The tragedy isn't that they failed, it's that they never truly tried. Their comfort zone became a cage with invisible bars, and one day they woke up wondering why their life felt so small. Now consider the second classmate, the one who treated comfort as the enemy. They read while others scrolled. They invested while others spent. They said no to trivial pleasures because they were too busy saying yes to something greater. While their peers sought validation, they sought mastery. And when failure came, as it always does, they didn't see it as a stop sign, but as a detour on the road to something extraordinary. The difference between these two lives isn't talent or luck. It's a series of daily choices. The decision to stretch when others shrink, to build when others consume, to endure discomfort when others chase the easy way out. Mediocrity doesn't announce itself with a dramatic fall. It's a slow fade, a quiet compromise repeated until the fire inside dims to embers. But the life of impact? That's forged in the stubborn refusal to let that fire die. So here's the question that splits destinies. Which classmate's story will be yours? Because time passes either way. The only choice is what you do with it. The moment of awakening doesn't come with fireworks. It arrives in the quiet, unsettling realization that you've been asleep. Breaking free begins when you start questioning the invisible rules that have governed your life. Why do we chase titles instead of purpose? Why do we equate busyness with worth? Society hands you a script before you can write your own. But true liberation starts when you crumple that paper and ask, what if I wrote something better? Discomfort is the price of admission to a life of meaning. Every muscle grows through resistance, and so does every aspect of your potential. The day you stop running from difficulty is the day you start racing toward your best self. Think of it like this. Comfort is quicksand. The more you sink into it, the harder it becomes to escape. But those first steps toward discomfort, that's where the solid ground begins. Your environment is either pulling you toward mediocrity or propelling you toward greatness. There is no neutral. The people around you aren't just company. They're co-authors of your future. Surround yourself with those who demand more of you than you demand of yourself. And above all, cultivate the ability to stand alone. The world is filled with followers waiting for permission. Be the one who gives it to yourself. Because in the end, the life you want won't be found in the chorus. It's waiting in the courage to sing your own song. This is where the fork in the road appears, not as a dramatic crossroads, but as a quiet whisper in your daily choices. That extra hour of sleep or the morning workout. Scrolling mindlessly or reading something that stretches your mind. Complaining about circumstances or building skills to change them. These are the tiny battles where greatness is won or surrendered. The default path will always feel easier. It's well-paved, well-lit, and crowded with people who'll reassure you that average is acceptable. But the path less traveled? It's where the magic happens, where you discover strength you didn't know you had, where setbacks become setups for comebacks, where you stop living on autopilot and start flying by the compass of your purpose. So here's your moment of truth. Will you hit the like button and move on? Or will you let this be the spark that ignites real change? Type "I'm in" below if you're ready to stop spectating and start participating in your own life. Because the world doesn't need more followers. It needs more leaders, creators, and visionaries. And that starts with you making one radical decision. Today, I choose growth over comfort. Your future self is waiting. What will you tell them you did with this moment?